Hey everybody, once again we're here with a World of Warships replay. Once again it is in an IJN cruiser, but this time it's in the Aoba, the tier 6 Japanese cruiser. Now this is where the cruiser line starts to get more modern and more visually distinctive. The early cruisers are all multi-stacked, very old looking things, and this is much closer to what the Japanese were using in World War II, because it is what the Japanese were using in World War II. Instead of the old, quadruple and triple funnels, the Aoba, like the Yubari, which was the experiment that led to a lot of these innovations, has its boilers trunked into a couple of funnels instead of, a whole shit ton of them. Which are quite steeply raked back. Gives it a nice appearance, gotta go fast. Has a more modern superstructure. Torpedo tubes are actually covered somewhat by decking at the back, and instead of a couple of single gun turrets arrayed around the ship, it has 3 twin gun 5-inch turrets with 4 smaller secondary guns. I think they're 120mm destroyer turrets. Once again, like the ones the Mutsuki can get. It also has a scout plane. The Aoba is quite fast. It's not the fastest cruiser, I'm pretty sure, but it's certainly not bad. Its maneuverability is okay. It's perhaps not as good as you would expect, but it's good enough. The gun range also isn't too bad, which is nice. And I think it's just a nice looking ship. I really like the look of the later Japanese designs with the raked funnels and the pagoda masts. They look quite nice. It's difficult to explain, I just like that look. I think more than I like the sort of boxier looks of the earlier ships, or the US ships. So straight away, we head down the eastern channel, spot a couple of battleships. I've got my scout plane up. Battleships also get scout planes, but there's a difference in the way they work. Battleship scout planes only stay airborne for about 2.5 minutes from memory. Cruiser scout planes stay in the air for 5 minutes. So the battleships essentially get a nerfed version of the cruiser scouts, in the same way that the tier 9 and 10 cruisers will be getting the battleship repair ability, but probably in a watered down form. I can't imagine it'll be exactly as effective as it is on the battleships, because that might be a little over the top. Now, against my better judgment, I decided to take a couple shots at the Congo here, just to see what my guns will do to him. We're still 11.7 kilometers out, he does see us and fires back. But I land some decent damage there. 3,000 damage is not really much more than tickling a battleship, but it's more than I expected to get out of that. I also dumped some torpedoes, although at this range there's not much hope of them hitting anything. It was more just a little bit of psychological warfare, I guess. More to comfort myself than threaten him, really. He does begin turning, although I suspect that was nothing to do with my torpedoes, which he probably hasn't even seen yet. And we begin taking fire from an enemy cruiser. So far my team's actually holding back quite a bit. Usually you'll get at least half the team charging suicidally down the west side, and they'll already be halfway to the enemy cap, but they'll also be hopelessly outnumbered and isolated as the enemy push into your own cap. The cap trades happen very often in World of Warships, more often than you would hope. Whereas they're quite rare in World of Tanks these days. Spot the enemy Mutsuki, or rather somebody else does. Try and put some shots into him, but it's a Mutsuki, it's pretty fast, and at this range my gunnery is not so great. The enemy Clevelands are keeping their distance. It's making me unable to really hit them accurately. The right-hand Cleveland is just outside of my range. can see those shells landed right next to him. But next to isn't good enough, it doesn't do damage. We've got 2 enemy destroyers up in the northwest with the majority of their heavy stuff. They've got 2 battleships up there and a 3rd heading that way. Now this wall of smoke is dangerous. At any second torpedoes could come spewing out at every direction. So I've got to keep on my toes. However, the Mutsuki is actually moving around my back, and so I begin to shift my guns that way while turning to my right side, and I'm hoping to follow the Farragut in there. Now of course the Mutsuki is probably just going to whiz around the island and it's going to turn into some Benny Hill skit, but we'll see what he does. And at this stage as well, because the match is playing so slowly, normally about half the team would be dead by now, I'm trying to figure out what exactly it is I should do and where I should go. I notice that this Cleveland is actually well within my gun range, and I decide I'll take a quick shot at him. Fortunately, my guns are taking forever to traverse. The battleship gets unspotted, but he appeared to be sitting more or less still in the enemy cap, so I could have got some shots on him too. Actually, no, he wasn't, he was turning. I just happened to spot him mid-turn. It can be quite difficult to try and lead a turning target. Because you're aiming on a single plane, basically, the game takes care of elevation for you.
Reporting the position of a priority target.
It's really odd. If somebody's moving towards or away from you at an angle, you have to actually move your aim up or down, and trying to judge how much up or down can be very, very difficult. So it takes a fair bit of trial and error, but I was able to land about 5,000 damage on that Congo, so I'm not going to complain about that. Again, it's really just tickling the battleship, and you can see him already starting to repair it. But a lot of tickling over enough time will actually wear through his armor and run him out of repairs. And the Mitsuki's making a break for the backfield. I no longer give a shit about stopping him. The Farragut can do it. It looks like we've got 2 AFK, our carrier and one of our battleships, which is not good news.
Scout returning.
What's more, it's our Fuso that's AFK, not our Congo. For now, the enemy battleships are all concentrated at the northwest corner of the map and the western channel, as are their cruisers. 2 of their 4 cruisers are currently spotted in the west channel, and it looks like the majority of their destroyers are well out of my way too. That smoke screen being from our Sims, who probably just got spotted by something. I apologise if this isn't the most enlightening commentary or the most riveting game. World of Warships does tend to play out slowly sometimes. You get a much higher draw percentage than in tanks. I find in World of Tanks my draw percentage is about 1 or 2%. And I think that's sort of the generally accepted figure, is you're going to get about 2% draws, or between 2 and 4% draws in World of Tanks. Which is why the average win rate isn't 50%, it's about 48 or 49% depending on the day, because you have to account for the draws. Whereas in World of Warships, I think I'm sitting on 6% draws at the moment, and I've heard of people with draw percentages as high as 11. So you get much more of them because of the nature of the game. Battleships don't have the mobility to get across the map in a hurry and reset a tying cap, or to, you know, hunt down a running enemy carrier. And quite often teams will just cap swap, so draws are very, very common in this game. I think it's a design issue that Wargaming are going to have a look at, because nobody likes a draw. Managed to get a good hit on that Cleveland, hoping to follow it up with another Citadel, but unfortunately my shots don't quite find their mark that time, and I'm now taking fire from the enemy Aoba, who is in front of me. I'm probably mincing the pronunciation of that, you'll have to forgive me. I've never really paid much attention in Japanese class in school because I can't really see myself ever going to Japan. As interesting a country as it is, it's not really on my visit list. The enemy Aoba is in a crossfire here for myself and the Sims. His own shots are landing around me more than on me. And so now I start to try and lead in my guns. Looks like my range is more or less on, those shots are straddling him either side. Just got to bring the lead out a bit. Perhaps not that much. And now I'm shooting long. He's moving slightly towards me, so again, this is having to compensate for that. It takes a little getting used to, but I get some hits, knock out his rearmost turret, and now I've got a good idea of where my lead is. You can't see it in the replays for some reason, but there are actually little ticks either side of the reticle that are useful for judging how much you have to lead somebody. You can memorize roughly which tick you want to ship on at certain speeds and certain distances. You can pretty consistently citadel hit people even at long range, which is where all the accusations of using the aiming mod come from, even though I don't. With the range down to 6.7 kilometers, it's now much easier for me to find my mark. I'm not sure why this guy is phasing in and out of existence, but he was doing that in the actual match as well. And there goes a big hit there. He's now taking fire from 3 ships. There's a Cleveland behind us. Oh, sorry, no, that's not a Cleveland. The Cleveland ended up getting killed. That is a Mogami, which is more or less a Japanese Cleveland. Very high rate of fire if you keep the 5-inch guns. I may as well speak about that now, actually. As you can see, the enemy are on our cap, so I'm beginning a turn to try and get back there and stop them. What you can't see me doing, again, because the replay is actually plotting a course, so I could just hands off it while trying to figure out what to do next. Anyway, the Mogami starts with 15 5-inch guns in 5 triple turrets. The upgrade gives it 10 6-inch guns in double turrets. The upgrade is actually a downgrade because the rate of fire on the 5 inches is just phenomenal, and the shell saturation as well is important. The more shells you've got in the air, the more likely you are to hit, and so there is a significant difference between 15 5-inch shells and 10 6-inch shells. Although the 6 inches have higher damage values per hit, you're likely to get more hits in a salvo with the 5 inches, simply because there's more of them and you're firing much faster. And really, at the end of the day, DPS is kind of important in this game. The most powerful ships in the game are all high DPS. Now, as I'm heading back to base, I decide to see if I can take some shots at anything on the enemy cap. You have to excuse any odd noises coming out of me at the moment. I just scoffed half a block of chocolate and my stomach is protesting. Battleship crosses into my range. I decide, yeah, fuck it, why not? I'll take some shots at him, see if I can light him on fire, maybe. Our own destroyer in cap is stalling as best he can, which is good. Unfortunately, he's getting very close to that battleship, so he's probably going to die to its secondary batteries, and sure enough, he does. Which is unfortunate. If he just stayed at long range and knocked it with an HE shell every now and then, he could have still reset cap without getting himself killed, but at least he bought us some time, so his heart was in the right place, if nothing else. One of the enemy cruisers now decides to head back towards their own cap to try and protect it. At the moment, the enemy only have 1 ship on our cap, and we're threatening to put 2 in theirs, but because of the way the game mechanics work, if you have a ship in your own cap while the enemy are trying to cap it, they won't accrue points. You have to clear the cap of enemy ships before you can get cap points. which is a good move because really you do need something like that in this game. It's not like World of Tanks where the cap circle's fairly small and it's easy to put shells into it. This game is a different beast. It's much more difficult to actually put a resetting shot in, especially if you've got some shithead in a destroyer who's smoking the whole cap and you can't see fucking shit. So you got to put your ship in there and just hope he doesn't torp you. Fire some parting shots towards the enemy Aoba. It's just crossing the edge of my range. And now I finally have eyes on the Congo who's in cap. Curiously enough, he's actually stopped. He is not moving. Which is really strange because it gives me the easiest reset on Earth. Now you can probably see the smoke in there. They do actually have a destroyer in there as well now. But I get the reset on the Congo. Unfortunately, it's not a full reset, obviously, because the destroyer's there, but it's a good start. In pouring shells into the Congo, hoping to just knock what health off of him I can, while our carrier, who is actually woken up and run to the far southwest corner, brings in his torpedo bombers. Unfortunately for the carrier, the second enemy destroyer has found him, and he is not long for this world. I do get some more hits there just to keep the cap down a bit, but it's the Mutsuki which is now going to be the problem, as he accrues points himself. He's also a very difficult target to hit, even at close range, let alone this far out. And at any moment he could pop another smoke screen, which would make it very difficult for me to do anything about him. I almost land a couple of shells on him there. He's actually making a very predictable turn. The only issue is that he's far enough out that he might reverse his turn. Thankfully he doesn't. And so I get the reset on him. Now I need to reset the Congo again. You can probably just see it, but his fore guns are pointing at me while his aft guns are pointing away. He's still trying to madly traverse them towards me, having just turned. I realise he's probably not going to drive into these torps, but I fire them off anyway, just in case. And while the Congo is distracted by me, our aircraft carrier manages to get some torpedoes out and actually hits with some of them. Unfortunately, it doesn't do as much damage as I would have liked, but it does make it much easier for me to get hits on the Congo by flooding him, which slows his maneuvering down, and also knocking a shit ton of hit points off him, so I actually have a much better chance of killing him now. I'm still firing AP. In hindsight, at this point, I probably should have switched to AP, because my AP will actually do decent damage to a Congo if I hit him. And he goes down. Presumably he was killed by flooding from the torpedoes, but unfortunately the Mutsuki's still on cap and I can't see the little fucking bastard. Oh, there he is. He's stopped as well. What the hell is going on? I'm able to blow the crap out of him with a single salvo from my forward's guns because he stopped. Never, ever, ever stop moving. I don't know why people need to be told this. It makes you an incredibly easy target, and it does nothing for the accuracy of your own guns. The only accuracy it improves is the enemies, as they no longer have to worry about judging lead. Now at this point, there's only a minute 13 left on the clock. There's still two enemy battleships, a cruiser and a destroyer to contend with. I know where the destroyer is. I know that there's a cruiser coming down the central channel because he's firing at me. And I know the battleships are probably not going to be far behind. In fact, the cruiser was actually in the east channel, so that may well have been a battleship firing at me. It's the Aoba. I do fire off a couple shells his way. I've still got HE loaded apparently, which I don't think I noticed. Normally I would not fire HE when dealing with a cruiser, but I suppose I was just so caught up in the sort of adrenaline rush that I didn't notice and forgot to swap back to AP. Now one good hit here will finish me. One good hit would be really nice for me actually right now, because I can't seem to find my aim at all. But the game is over and I have somehow survived it.